Nothing like a little technical difficulties to get us started this evening. Thank you for holding in there. I am Matt. This is Why Libertarian, coming at you every single, what is now Monday through Friday. Our guest this evening has the honor and the distinction of being the last Friday episode that I'll be doing. I will be live Monday through Thursday going forward. But so that being said, before we get rolling, got a little bit of business to do. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, retweet, get this out there. Have a fantastic interview lined up this evening, so definitely, get this out there so that folks can hear about this candidate and the really important message that he's bringing to the table specifically for New Jersey. A reminder, you can definitely hit me up on my link tree down here. We are streaming to 5 locations now. Pretty soon, as soon as a couple of other outlets come on board with their live streaming, it will be up to 6 or 7. So you can hit me up anywhere on those streams that I'm throwing out there and watch. And definitely, if you're watching, please, hit the subscribe, follow, or upvote it for me, just to help with the algorithm so that the message gets to more people. Before I get rolling, last thing, next week, awesome schedule coming up. Tuesday, I got one of the co-creators of Oriole, which is a blockchain-based podcasting platform, which is fantastic. I have the infamous Jose Galasan from one of the core members of the Tower Gang that's out there. And then Thursday, we close down our week of live casts with Josiah Hinkle talking some more natural rights, which is going to be fantastic. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to bring on the Libertarian Party candidate for the governor of New Jersey running this year in 2021, Gregg Mele. Gregg, how's it going?
Hey, all right, sir. How are you? Good to see you, man.
I'm very good. Very good. So before we get rolling, I want to give everyone the information that they need to link up with you after all of this. So I want to make sure that they get that straight. So what is the website for your campaign?
Okay, it's www.meleforgovernor.com, and it's Mele, my last name. You see on the screen, M-E-L-E, and the word for F-O-R.
Awesome.
There we go.
That's the one. So where else can they follow you? I think you have social links up here in the top right-hand corner, right? Facebook, Twitter,
Right.
and Instagram?
Yep. We've got those accounts all set up, too. Everything tends to repost throughout all of those when we send something out. So also, if you see on the site there's a button to sign the petition, another one to donate, of course. Those are critical, especially the petition button right now. Hopefully, we'll be done with that real soon and move on to more messaging.
Yes, extremely important right now. And in fact, I'm going to pull up, this is what the petition looks like. So if you are a New Jersey resident, please, digitally sign the petition to help Gregg get onto the ballot. As third-party candidates, Libertarians obviously have to fight an uphill battle against 2 behemoths that are essentially stacking the deck against them. And one of those first hurdles that they have to get over is ballot access. So please help Gregg out by going to the website and definitely click on the petition so that you can sign it digitally and make sure that he is on the petition this year. All right, well, you're running for governor. I want to get to your platform, but before that, I really want people to get to know who you are as a person before we get to all the politics and everything like that. So if no one has ever heard of you before, who is Gregg Mele?
Well, first of all, lifelong New Jersey resident. I grew up in Bergen County, then moved to Central, a couple of spots in Union County for a little while, and now out in Somerset in Bridgewater. And so been around a couple of different places, but always, New Jersey, is home sweet home, near and dear to my heart. As time goes on, it's a little bit sadder for me because I see changes I don't think are in the right direction, and that's been a large motivation for me to get more politically active and to do this run certainly over the last few years. So I'm trying to reach out to people, find out what experiences they're having, if they're having the same issues, anything different than that, whatever it is. I want to be the solution for everyone in terms of what we can bring, myself and the party, to New Jersey to make it a better place for everybody and really also stop the exodus of everybody that's been going on.
Yeah, no, most definitely. What do you do for your day job?
Well, I've been an attorney now for 18 and a half years, actually. I did finish law school, passed the bar a few years before that, but I had a previous career, which was mostly in Wall Street firms. I started out with IT, actually. I was a math and science guy, if you can believe, and did some business analysis, project and team leadership, all of that kind of stuff. Again, mostly Wall Street firms. And then made the switch over once I had finished with the school programs and all that kind of stuff, and had my own office since 2002, and I've been doing the same ever since. A few years in the beginning in Summit, and for the last 13 years I've been in Clark with my office, and that's where I am now.
Yeah. And what type of law do you practice?
It's mostly transactional. I do the occasional smaller cases in court, but it's corporate, it's real estate, it's wills, estate planning, intellectual property, a little bit of immigration filings, things like that, kind of all over. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, the last kind of fluffy question, or the fluffiest question, home life. What are your hobbies like, and married kids? What, 2 dogs, picket fence. What does that look like?
All right. So I am actually my second marriage, and so is my wife. We both have children from the previous marriages. So I have 2 girls. She has 3 boys. So it's kind of a almost reverse Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
It's been challenging.
Yeah.
But it's good. And my girls actually right now, they're 30 and 28. They're both married, both off on their own. Actually, my younger one, the 28-year-old, is going to make me a grandpa, hopefully in June. All goes well. So
Congratulations.
we're very excited about that at home. Yep. Thank you. And my wife's boys, 27, 25, and 17. We have a high school senior about to graduate. Move on to college. Otherwise, everybody else is doing their own thing, and so it's the rewarding stage time.
Yes.
I got married coming up on our 5-year anniversary, actually in June. So that's been a great stage in my life. My wife is wonderful, Jenny. If you're watching, you are the reason I'm able to handle all of this, and you're probably the only person who could tolerate all of this. So I appreciate you and love you in every way.
Oh, you got the brownie points for the day. Good job, Greg.
It's not hard to remember. She's something special, I'll tell you.
That's awesome. And what high school did you attend?
I was in Paramus Catholic, actually. I grew up in the town next door, Rochelle Park, a small town up in Bergen County. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Enough of the fluffy stuff. Let's talk about actual New Jersey politics here.
Absolutely.
You're running for governor. What has that looked like up until now? You've been named the Libertarian Party candidate early as compared to basically the other parties. I mean, we pretty much know who the Democrat's going to be. But what has your campaign looked like up until now? And what is that next level? What are you getting to into the future here?
Okay, well, I should start, I guess, with that one by saying that it was August last year, actually, when I first announced internally to the party that I would make this run or seek the nomination. Essentially, at that point, nomination was formalized in March, and it was all great experience at our convention. So, I told people as part of my acceptance at that vote that I basically owed everyone in the party for showing the support for me, including actually for months leading up to that. Even I had close to 30 people on my campaign team, and they've been just phenomenal at putting in all kinds of work and trying to get the messaging out there, get everything set up with the infrastructure. Really talented team, and so I do pay homage to them. And getting to the nomination, I basically said, well, I owe all of you in the party the fight of my life, and that's what I pledged to give for this to this run, just to show my appreciation. I mean, a lot of folks in the party are just wonderful people. They've moved me, they've touched my heart, and as with the rest of the state, I just want to do the best job that anyone can do for everyone and make this the envy of every other state, basically. Which, it's hard to get that reputation as New Jersey. Everybody kind of pokes a little fun here and there, but it has been a great place over time. It's just it's going in the wrong direction, and we have to make a lot of changes and get back to where we should be.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate the fact that you said you're going to fight like hell, because we need it. I think, there's been a certain level of almost complacency that has set in New Jersey, and so we definitely need that fight. What would you say is, or let me start with this. The most pertinent thing on most people's minds is COVID, the lockdowns, everything like that. What's your perspective on what transpired here in New Jersey, and then what's the better solution? What's the remedy?
Yeah. Well, as far as what's been going on, I mean, there's been a lot of fear put out there between the governor and the media that everyone has to lock down to stay safe. They almost talk like there's like a huge radiation cloud traveling down the street, and if the wind blows in your direction, you're going to get deathly ill. Mm-hmm. And I mean, look, everybody knows, the virus is real. People have passed away, an inordinate number of people, and everyone regrets that loss of life. But there's also a chunk of that, at least in New Jersey, attributable to the governor's actions. I mean, he basically was lockstep Murphy following Governor Cuomo in New York. Yep. And there was also a lot of just reacting in the fear base versus looking at the science. And everything was, we have to stop you from doing all different things, and including making a living, which is also very difficult for people. So in the method that's been used by Governor Murphy, I mean, he basically made us the top rated state as it is for COVID deaths, which is a horrible disgrace. And it just shows that the lockdowns don't work. And also, I mean, among our team, we have a phenomenal biostatistician, who has taken a look at the data all the way through, and it bears out time and time again that the more lockdowns, the more mandates, the more suffering and death that people go through. And that's why we're leading that category, sadly. And so day one, task one for me is to end the lockdown mandate across the board. There's rarely, if ever, a call for emergency powers of the governor. Changes should go through the normal legislative process. And so I would be abolishing that and seeking to make it a permanent thing, that basically, we're going to go back to life as normal, where, rather than mandates. I mean, our party stands for, and I certainly stand for, the idea that we're all grown-ups. We can all make our own intelligent decisions. We can get fully informed, and we can make the right call for ourselves. And for some people, that is, stay at home and stay away from people and work at home, or whatever options might be there. And for some people, it's we have to get out and do things. I mean, I've had a very limited time where I minimized my time going to the office. Maybe a month or two that I was coming in 2 to 3 days a week, and trying to pick a couple of days a week where I could bring work home, not have any meetings. That was April and May, and by June, it was like, there's no way I can stop coming in every day. I had people with significant needs that I had to be there for, and I wasn't going to sacrifice them because of my concerns. I voluntarily took all the safety precautions that made people comfortable enough to come and see me and get their life moving and keep things going the way it had to be. And that's how it should be. It should be the individual's decision. It's how many of my policies stack up.
Yeah. So would you be an advocate for the legislature taking official action to limit executive power?
That's the way it should be, and yes. So certainly that's what I would advocate for, and certainly if I can get in office, I will be putting forth legislation to achieve just that and asking for the vote on it. And I would be making all kinds of recommendations to say we have to make this change. This is for the better of the state. I am the antithesis of a power grabber. I am never going to be looking to take personal power in a position of mine at the expense of anyone. I run my whole life sacrificing my personal situation for others so that they can be better off. And I'm not about to change.
Yeah. No, that is extremely refreshing because I don't think I've ever heard someone, at least of all in New Jersey politics, saying that they want to get into an office and then immediately advocate for the limitation of powers of the office that they're getting into, which I think is it's more than refreshing. I mean, it's needed, it's crucial because of the power grabs that have happened as of
Look,
late.
it's the right thing to do, period.
Yep.
And that's why I'm standing for it.
That's fantastic. Really quick reminder before we go on to the next topic, to everyone watching, you can ask questions and comments for Gregg. So if you do have any questions about him as a candidate, or harken back to the fluffy stuff that we talked about at the beginning, definitely share your comments and questions with him. I'm going to allow one of our questions to lead us into the next topic. So Dr. Mike Guadagnino has asked, how will you help children and parents in lesser schools have the same opportunity as kids in better school districts here in the state?
Okay, yeah, that's certainly one of our sweet spots in the campaign. We are promoting heavily for school choice, and again, a form of free market competition of sorts. Right now, we have a school system which is failing. This past year, I mean, basically, the kids have been on summer vacation for over a year now, and
Yeah.
I mean, I see it firsthand in many instances, and hear about it from others consistently. That the days are extremely short. They're online in most cases completely. There's no rigor. Kids are even able to turn off their cameras and get away with that without being marked absent or whatever it is. Which, I mean, they're not doing the work when they're not able to be looked at like that. I mean, I see kids playing video games on their other machines, and while they're basically just letting the speaker let them know when the class is over, so they can jump on just to say goodbye. And it's just not the way that you learn, and it's not the way you prepare for future life. I mean, it's all fun and games and a big joke right now for them, but the students are going to realize later on that they're not as well prepared for a world that is not going to be, merciful to them. It's going to hit them like in the face like a brick. The reality that they're really not prepared. So we want the primary focus of our school choice is the whatever tax revenue is collected to go to a student for education follows the student wherever they go. So if the student is not in the public school system has to work with less. And that's the way it should be. I mean, right now, especially, I mean, on the one side, I will say we have a lot of great teachers here. I think they're shackled by centralized administrative policies as to curriculum and methods and all this kind of stuff. They have to be turned loose to do what they know how to do best. The administrators simply don't know as well as the teachers how to deal with that classroom full of kids and get them to learn and also be interested, driven, and motivated to learn. And on the other side of it, the administrative side, I mean, every example I've come across, they're just so heavily bloated with layers of administrative red tape and organization that's not necessary. And just that part is why our property taxes are out of control, which could also segue us, by the way, into something else. But basically, I mean, that's being collected where we're not getting the return for the dollar. The ROI is horrible for what the schools are doing right now. Now, I know traditionally New Jersey schools have been, performing pretty well relative to the country, but on an international level, I mean, you can go back as far as when the Department of Education was formed, federal and state. That I mean, we used to lead the world in everything. Now we're what? I'm wondering if we're even below 30 now, because we were certainly in the upper 20s a few years back at best. And it's clear that the system is not working anywhere in this country, really. But of course, my focus here is New Jersey. Now, we have to be more vigilant on making sure that the education the kids are getting is getting them ready for the future.
Yeah, no, that's extremely well said, and I agree with you. I think competition breeds better performance overall, right? And so I have a couple follow-up questions that kind of bridge the gap between these first two issues. The first of which has to do with homeschooling. New Jersey is an extreme, it's an enigma in a country and technically such a blue state that is so, dominated politically by, public sector unions and the like, that in New Jersey, homeschooling is extremely easy, right? You don't have to register or anything like that. There's no like specific curriculum. You don't have people that are basically looking over your shoulder every 15 seconds. Are you in favor of homeschooling, and would you, defend the freedom that parents have now in New Jersey to homeschool if they want to?
Right. And it's the same as the school choice with vouchering for other schools or tax credit toward a private school, possibly, if that will make the difference in affordability. The same thing for homeschool. It's the money follows the student. As long as that is the case in one form or another, that's how we're going to get the best return on our investment. And so, yeah, I mean, to the extent of the parents who have the ability to homeschool, teach themselves, or it could be even a collection of parents that say we're going to hire an accredited teacher, but we're all going to just pay privately to that teacher to have a small class at one of the houses, or whatever it is, whatever arrangement works. As long as we have talented people that are teaching, things that are certainly going to be essential for the students to, survive out in the workforce at some point, that's really the enablement that we need to do as a government in the state.
Yeah, no, fantastic. That's all right. So I'm kind of going down. My wife is very much into. We have homeschooled kids, so she's very much into asking about homeschooling and then also about medical freedom. So that's going to be my follow up. This next thing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's returning to school or just returning to life pre-COVID, there has been a ton of drama that is around the COVID vaccines as well as these vaccine passports. Where do you stand, whether it be, returning to school or whether it be returning just to kind of life in general in New Jersey? Where do you stand on COVID, COVID vaccine mandates and the COVID vaccine passport idea?
Right. Certainly, I don't agree with the mandate. I think and we already have a lot of vaccine that we take as young children, and there's a limit to that. And I mean, to the extent that people have concerns certainly about this vaccine now, it's relatively new. There's not a lot of long-term history to go by yet, and people are just barely getting educated enough to make an informed decision. I think to some degree they're part of the research if they take the vaccine, but hopefully all goes well for the folks who decide to do that. And again, if you want to take the vaccine, it's your prerogative. If you don't want to, it should also be your prerogative. And the whole thing about the passport thing that concerns me is the impact on ability to live for someone who it takes the choice they should very well have not to take the vaccine. I mean, it's ripe for abuses and for people to be, kept from their full potential as well, just because of a personal decision. As far as I see it, it's personal.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right to the heart of, individual freedom and liberty. So I appreciate both of those positions. And you alluded to this next question yourself. Maybe you saw the comments that were the lead up to this. I'm actually going to put two comments up on the screen before I ask you the question, or the second comment is basically the question. But okay. So Ranson Whiskey says, how do you plan to fight the mafia known as the NJEA and stop the hemorrhaging of money that comes from property taxes that go to school districts? I think we talked about school choice, and that's a huge, that's a huge impact right there in the very, beginning in terms of getting a control of those costs. Yeah. And the second question, which is kind of in line with that, is Frankie tuning in. Frankie, involved in the LP and involved in your campaign, so she's here to support you. And she also has a question from her mom. She said, Greg, my mom wants to know what you'll do to lower her taxes.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, certainly people in the state know that a large chunk, probably the largest chunk of their property tax goes to the school districts. And again, if we can be more efficient by having more options where there's competition, things will get streamlined. Things, the bloated organizations will be trimmed. to stay competitive, and that's going to reduce that big chunk right away. We also have a teachers union, like the previous comment mentioned, that I mean, I won't call them mafia, but basically they are, trying to take in as much funding as they can, and even like now, I mean, the teachers are teaching half a day or less, and they're still getting paid the same. The budget is still the same. The property taxes are certainly not being reduced to accommodate or account for, I should say, the reduction in the work being done. And meanwhile, that also gives the union their share that they can then use to, guess what, contribute to their friend, Governor Murphy, who is enabling them to stay on these lockdown scenarios, probably more significantly, possibly than any other area now, as far as the ability to limit the work and certainly the time face to face. So it's all a vicious cycle that has to be broken by getting the union to not just on a more sort of, I'll call it, greedy and selfish angle, support the union and the gathering funds for the pension, but also see that it's at the sacrifice of the children and the families and even the teachers themselves. The union is really bloating the administrative budgets, so they're the ones that are benefiting, but it's at a huge cost to everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's I think if you don't know, if you don't live in New Jersey, you don't necessarily understand this concept. There are some places outside of New Jersey that they understand. New York being one of them, right? Which, by the way, you had a little slip up and said New York schools because recently you were on with Larry Sharp, and so after everyone's done watching this, definitely go watch the Larry Sharp episode, because that was also a fantastic interview. I think he calls his segment Libertarian candidates getting coffee or something.
Libertarians drinking coffee live, yes, and
yes,
I did have a cold can coffee, so
yeah.
I was qualified. But that's a good segue, though, Matt. I appreciate that. Thanks for the coverage of the slip there.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, hey, you got in just under the wire with the cold coffee too, so that's all right. We'll allow it.
Yeah, exactly.
But like 60% of our property taxes are dedicated to school districts, and that percentage continues to increase over time because of some of these dynamics. So not to mention the fact that if folks knew what we paid in property tax, folks in Louisiana or Nebraska, if they knew what we paid in property tax, they'd have a heart attack, I think.
Lead the nation again. See, it's always that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the one thing you don't want to be the best in. I'll tell you that much, or one of the things. So let me ask you: are there other ways that we can positively affect the over taxation that we have going on in New Jersey?
Well, also the Medicaid system is draining a lot of funds, and some of the red tape there has to be whittled away or eliminated. Basically, some of the right to try proposals, I think, are a big help in terms of just giving the public options for anything they need to do to try to help a medical condition or save a life or whatever it might be for themselves or their families or whatever else. And just by having that, it would seem to me that it would also necessitate, again, in a competitive sort of environment, the current red tape to be whittled down and not require so much of the funding there, which is another cost coming out of our taxes. So that's got to be made more efficient as well. And again, the right to try, I mean, I think that's also essential to liberty, and the fact that if a person is informed about an option, even if, for example, if something is not approved by the FDA yet, but it's been approved elsewhere and is in use, and results are good, and the data is there to suggest it, and it's just the red tape of the FDA or other governmental body that's holding it up here. Lives are being lost while we wait for that, and that can't be allowed to be the norm, and it's just been the norm way too long.
Yeah, and I can say from firsthand experience working in the health insurance industry as well, that regulation causes some de facto monopolies and oligopolies as well within the healthcare networks, and so which as most people could imagine is not good for pricing. It's the
Yeah.
exact opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah. So now, let me ask you this. So actually, we have a couple of comments here. I'm just going to throw up really quickly. They have to do with the former conversation that we were having. But yeah, 2018, $4.5 million
Mhm.
donated to Murphy's campaign from the
Yeah.
NJEA. So that just
Yeah.
goes to show everyone how strong that union is in terms of its political
Well,
influence. Ransom
and how
Whiskey
much,
saying, "Oh, so
sorry,
go ahead, go
and how
ahead."
much also Murphy's in their pocket and vice versa. So
Yes,
just,
yes, yep.
it's a rigged game. Hmm.
Yep. And Ransom Whiskey saying, folks do know how bad the property taxes is. That's why not very many people move here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who is at that point where they're like, look, I can't do it anymore, right? Like I've been in New Jersey for a long time or most of my life. It's just too expensive. Everything's continuing to go up. What would you tell that person?
Yeah, yeah, and it's sad that, yeah. I mean, I can say personally, I mentioned on Larry's show also that I mean, in the last year and a half or so, I've had at least 50 close friends, virtually going back to grammar school, leave the state because it's just simply there's no way to sustain certainly any kind of retirement plan or anything like that. We're leading the nation for a few years now in departures for individuals looking for some place where they can have a better quality of life and that their finances can manage much
Yeah.
more easily. And it's also small business that's, if not folding completely, heading for the border to get out of the state to go somewhere else where it's more affordable, less taxation. We have the most business unfriendly state regulation in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the root of a lot of problems also, because if you let business thrive, first of all, you're going to have more employment, more people are going to have more opportunities to train and educate themselves to make their own living, so they don't have to be the government's lapdog dependent on the fish for a day. They'll learn how to fish and they will take care of themselves and their family much better. And that's far better solution than the government handout and the dependence. And so we want to enable the individuals, have a better quality of life for themselves, also have the opportunities to pursue those dreams of building a business from the ground, employing people, all these things that really make things work well. I mean, we have a really educated workforce overall that is very talented. They can do anything, and we just have to stop getting in the way. We have to enable with the training and education, and otherwise we have to remove the obstacles, let them do what they can do best, and this economy would then thrive. It would be on fire.
Oh yeah. And so, where do you stand on, say, like vocational licensure and permits? Do you think that brings any value to the table, or is it a net negative?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, for some fields you need some educational background to
Yep.
know what you're doing. Yeah, to me, if you learn the trade, then if you go out and if you don't follow the protocols that you learn and you mess something up, I mean, you don't belong in that business,
Mm-hmm.
and that will show itself.
Yep.
To go through a whole other layer of this, again, bureaucracy and red tape, just to pay the state basically for the right to work. I mean, I don't understand why that would be healthy for the economy. I think
Yeah.
people need to get out there and do what they do, and the ones who survive will do a good job, and people will recognize it.
Yeah. And with the state of technology, I mean, whether it be Yelp or Google reviews or Facebook reviews or anything like that, the ability for someone to get background information on the quality of service from an individual,
Mhm.
it's there, right? And so these things are just they're basically barriers to entry for poor folks. Is essentially what it is.
Exactly, and any kind of licensing fees are always going to hurt the poor more. It's not a progressive system in that respect. It's a barrier to entry.
Yeah,
just like you said.
most definitely, most definitely. So, all right, let me touch on something. So, New Jersey is a very difficult state when it comes to constitutional rights. We are one of those states, unfortunately, where the leadership many years feels like constitutional rights are negotiable, and that nothing is absolute. And so you are, and I'm gonna play something here for everyone. This is one of my most favorite. If you can have a favorite political ad, this is one of my most favorite political ads I've ever seen in my 39 years on this planet. But so I'm going to play the ad, and I'm going to ask you some questions about it, both in
Sure.
terms of the making of it as well as kind of your policy position. So everyone enjoy this, and make sure to share this video, because you should tell people to come to timestamp 38 minutes or so and watch this. This is amazing.
I'm Gregg Mele, and I'm the Libertarian candidate for governor of New Jersey.
And I'm Nicholas Magner, Legislative District 4's Libertarian candidate for General Assembly. We're out here for some target practice today to show you guys just how committed we are to a person's natural right to keep and bear arms. I will fight for nothing less than constitutional carry. All laws are infringements.
Phil Murphy has been abusing executive orders to kill small business, murder elderly in nursing homes, and continue to strip away your freedoms. As governor, I'll work to abolish all executive action and stop enforcement of all gun control measures, period.
What I have in my hand is New Jersey's gun legislation. I couldn't think of a better way to respect our Constitution than using this as target practice.
Other candidates claim to be pro-2A, but I promise you, no one is more serious about your sovereignty than the Libertarian Party.
Stop contributing to the downfall of New Jersey. Vote for freedom. Vote Libertarian all the way down your ticket.
I love that ad. That's absolutely fantastic. So one of the
Who was that guy?
Yeah, I know. I had the pleasure of interviewing Nick. Nick's a good friend. I interviewed him a couple weeks back on the show. I love the fact that you two are willing to take a stand on this issue, because New Jersey is completely polar opposite to that viewpoint. It is very anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, or at least, extreme restrictions on the Second Amendment. As far as let me ask you first about in terms of shooting the commercial. How was that process? Did you have fun doing that? What was it like the day of?
That was a great time. Yeah, I mean, we got it organized very quickly. Nick had the initial contact with the production crew, and so I came along and found out what was happening. And part of the campaign promise I made in the beginning too was support my down ballot partners in the candidacies. So it was a great opportunity to show Nick in particular, and hopefully the rest of the down ballot who saw it, that I'm going to be all over the place this year. I'm going to be helping out as much as I can with everybody. And so it was a great day to get out there. Actually, I'll tell you that I had several missed opportunities. I had never gotten to fire a gun until that day in all my years, which is still amazing to me that it just, it was, like I said, a few chances along the way that just never seemed to work out schedule wise and whatever. So it was pretty exciting also for that part of it for me. And, I was incredibly impressed in particular with the concern for safety with everyone in the crew there. They taught me everything I needed to know to be an incredibly responsible gun owner. And I'm not an owner yet, but I've considered it in these last several months or a year, like I hadn't really thought about before that. And I know that I'll be responsible for it. And that's the key point. That for some areas of the state, admittedly, it's a hard sell. But to say that the people who are responsible with their gun ownership, they do a great job of protecting their families when something does happen, and also they promote the idea that this is not something to be afraid of. This is something to treat with the responsibility and respect it deserves. But I mean, I've said starting a long time ago, I do not consider the Bill of Rights above my pay grade. So and I just want to make sure people are clear on the differences between me and Governor Murphy. And I think it favors my own candidacy, quite frankly. So the day of the shoot, though, otherwise, I mean, yeah, it was really interesting stuff. It was a great time, creative ideas, and really trying to drive home that message to the public.
Yeah, and look, I'm not even going to mention them because by name, but the other party that's out there, I mean, they're essentially the right wing of the Democratic Party here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
They have done the 2A community no favors over the last several decades. And so, to that extent, I'm excited to have at least a couple of candidates that are brave enough to be able to make that statement that they are unabashedly pro the Second Amendment. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I want to also mention, since you talked a little bit about that. Yes, of course, there's a third candidate out there. We hope to consider them as a non-factor, but hey, a little bold, but I'll make that prediction. But yeah, we've talked about that. Basically, the front runner on the other side is a clone of Murphy, basically. And he's a big statist. He's very left leaning, and so I tell folks, as far as like splitting vote and stuff, because of course libertarians hear about that all the time. Oh, we're splitting the vote somehow and affecting the result. Well, actually, that's great when we affect the result. I'm very proud of that, and I'll cry all the way to the bank for those other folks who lament that. But the way I see it, all the statists in New Jersey, if we have such a blue state, maybe let's say it's about 60%, because I mean Murphy I think was close to that last time with his result. So okay, if they have two statists to pick from, let them split that 30 and 30, and I'll just take the rest and go home with the trophy. So no problem.
Call it a day.
Exactly. Yep. We're ready.
Yeah. I think that is a very important thing for folks to understand if they're outside of New Jersey, is just that the choice between the two major party candidates that are out there, or at least the better funded machines that are out there, it's very little difference. I mean, they both believe in wielding the government. They just disagree on a couple of the finer points. But they are like we said earlier, they would never stand in front of you and tell you that they were going to get elected to an office and then advocate to neuter the powers of that office that they were running for. They're just going to tell you how they'll use it different.
And I'll tell you, at every level, when we see candidates, every year it seems like worse and worse candidates get put up by the duopoly, and people get more and more disgusted, and they're more and more vocal about it. And we're seeing a big shift. I mean, people weren't happy, for example, at the presidential level in 2016. They weren't thrilled with the candidates. They were not, top-notch, candidates by any stretch. And but the traditional kind of, okay, we're afraid to go third party, though, took much more root then. And after the election, which was a historical pattern for third parties like ours, is there was a drop off in active membership right after that election. I mean, people get excited for the season, and then some just go back to sort of everyday life. They take the winter off, kind of thing, and we see a drop off.
Yep.
I will tell you that for this past November election, the Libertarian Party hasn't had any moment since then where the membership has gone down. We've had a steady continuance of enthusiasm and momentum, and part of it is the disgust with the duopoly in these past several months on both sides, and part of it is also that we have kept the party active too. So I think people are seeing that we haven't taken a winter break. There's been stuff to do the entire time, since before last November's election. And people are getting energized, and it's getting further and further. I see, I've had a couple of cases. For example, I had clients that mentioned to me, "Oh, I was talking to my friend, and I said, yeah, actually my attorney is running for governor." And they said, "Oh, what's his name?" And they said the name, and they were like, oh yeah, I heard something about him. And like, the word is out there, and we just have to keep pushing and pushing the word out as far as we can reach it. And I have all the faith in the world that people are going to see, by and large, that ours is the best message and the best plan.
Yeah, most definitely. It's the number of people that are waking up. I call it whatever you want. Like some people call it red pilling, some people call it waking up or getting out of the matrix. Unplugging. Tons of people are waking up, and we've seen that. The growth in membership in the Libertarian Party has outpaced the Republicans and Democrats. And so that is, you're right. The momentum is there. It's continuing the way forward, which is fantastic. A final call. If you're watching live, if you have final questions or comments, please throw them into the chat now. I'm going to throw one up, and this is in line with something else that's been a gigantic headline as of late, as well as a constant since late 2019 and early 2020, has to do with, the Black Lives Matter movement. It has to do with police militarization, as well as, the qualified immunity. Speaking of gun safety, what are your thoughts on the militarization of police in the state? Example being small towns with, MRAPs and full body armor, and basically, troops that look like they're gearing up for war when they're supposed to be essentially, community police officers. What's your take on the state of that?
Yeah, well, so a big dividing line, I think, throughout the Libertarian Party, certainly with me, is it's one thing when you're a private gun owner and you're protecting your home and all this kind of stuff. When it turns into the public sector, the government, it's a different ballgame. I mean, I think, part of the problem with the situation with the police in general, too, is that we have all these laws that are victimless or trivial situations. They're really a money-making machine to make up for irresponsible spending in the budget.
Yep.
Frankly, so if we could stop the overspending, the drunken sailor spending, and be more reasonable with that, it would be less tempting to put laws on the books or keep them there that are really useless and only serve to escalate situations that didn't need to be situations in the first place. I mean, we certainly stand for, as the Libertarian Party, the NAP principle, the non-aggression principle, that says that you should be able to live your life the way you want to live it, as long as you're not impacting others in a negative way and letting them live their lives, right? So we do care, of course. If somebody commits a violent crime against somebody, we want them pursued, arrested, prosecuted, if guilty, convicted, and punished for it. But if it's something where no one's getting hurt, it's consensual activity between people, whatever it might be, a police officer coming onto the scene just instigates a whole bunch of problems that don't have to be. And in fact, we hear from several police officers that they don't want to pursue some of these crimes that they're being told to pursue, because it just leads to trouble. It's not worth it. And again, other than the money that people are pocketing in the government to be able to spend like crazy. So if we could get rid of all that stuff and get rid of the temptation for the money machine, then we would have an opportunity to not have to have the police doing all this militarization. We wouldn't have a justification for it. We would be able to stop it. And that's the thing. I mean, it is wrong, and it just needs to be stopped. I mean, yes, they're going to have bad guys. There's always going to be bad guys to pursue at some level. But they don't need to be like the military coming in to abuse that. And also certainly for decent people who are just making life choices that somehow has been tagged as not acceptable to others, that they're in a position to make the rules. So, everybody over 18 is an adult. They should be treated as one. They should be able to do whatever they consent to. I mean, they should be fully informed. I think that certainly a big part of the government's role should be providing information for people so they can make educated choices. Once that's the case, the government has to back off and let the people make those choices. And even if something can be harmful, for example, so what? I mean, that's what being an adult is being able to make those choices. And you know what? If it becomes too harmful, they're going to seek a way to stop doing that, or just stop doing that, depending on how easy it is. If there's an addiction problem, we should have some of the funding that we have in the government for treatment We shouldn't be criminalizing these people. And one thing, by the way, I want to mention along that line, because it brings up the question of the marijuana and the vote that we had in November to legalize, overwhelming 2-1 in favor of legalization was the vote.
Oh, you froze up a little bit. Greg took the words out of my mouth. I was going to go right to the legalization piece. Hopefully I can get him back here. But hold on. Do I have him back? Let me pull him out and put him back into the stream, see if we can get him back here. Oh, I got you, Greg.
Myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, you froze up a little bit on my end. So you were transitioning perfectly. It's like I'm gonna have to make a donation because you did so well doing
There
that
you
transition. Yeah, the legalization, overwhelming support, right? But first of all, did it happen quickly enough? Okay, and then also, did the actual legalization that was passed go far enough, in your opinion?
Well, there's a couple of problems. So yeah, we had that vote, and I was about to say, sometime in January, I saw a statistic that 6,000 arrests or so had been made for possession after the November vote up until that point, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, the fact is, the first thing that should have happened the day after the election was to release all the nonviolent offenders that were in prison already. That's going to be my day one task number 2 after ending the lockdowns, is to release all those folks immediately. If they do need treatment for anything, get them the treatment, get them back to being productive members of society and supporting their families and having better quality of life, as it should be. They should not be criminalized. If they have a problem with any kind of substance, for example, it's a medical issue. It's not a criminal issue, in my opinion. So that's one thing. The other thing is, it's been taking a while to get to the point of some kind of legislation that can function. And even with that, the requirements for qualifying for a license, essentially, here goes that word again. But the people who are going to get that is, guess who? The top 10 CEOs that in the state that are Murphy's cronies that are going to be able to benefit. The barriers to entry to the little guy are just incredibly high, and it's like it didn't do anything at all. It's really still illegal for all the folks that were looking to make some kind of life out of this, and also the costs, the fees, all this kind of stuff, the taxation that's going to occur. This is a problem that's occurred in a few other states where the taxation was set so high it really didn't make it available anyway. So you were really back to square one. So those are the things that have to be put aside and not part of the picture in order to make this right. I mean, everybody voted yes for a reason, and it wasn't to make it so exclusive that it's really no improvement at all.
I think that's something also that has become all too common, and it's really I don't even know. I mean, it's infuriating if you think about it often enough. When something should be so simple as to say, look, you have the ability to ingest or not ingest something if you so choose to do it. And then it's been criminalized for so long that they're going to go decriminalize it. And then all of a sudden they're going to put all these stipulations on it. Look, it's either legal or it's not. Right? Like that I think is the problem, because most of these elected officials end up using that leverage of essentially, auctioning your rights back to you to be able to, get their pound of flesh or to, satisfy some kind of, conflict of interest relationship that they have on the back end of that deal. I mean, I'll make another personal confession too. That's also something I've never tried. I've never really been interested, but as I've thought about it over the years, it's like, well, but why should I stop anyone else? I mean, it's not my right to do that, as far as I'm concerned. This is just like the gun legislation. I mean, 2A gun ownership and freedom, for marijuana or other drugs. This is all human rights, and this is choice. This is something, again, not nearly above my pay grade to deal with, and it's to me a very straightforward and simple answer. You have to allow the people to do what they want to do. Yeah. It sounds like you stand for a principle as opposed to just being a Republican who likes to smoke weed. I know with some of the Libertarian parties have that rap, but I mean, this is
the logic, and it's interesting because I mean, in my younger days, I mean, a couple of folks I did know who use the marijuana quite a bit. I mean, it did impact their life some, but I mean, back then we didn't have the information we have today. People overdid things that they don't overdo so much anymore, and to me, it was a bit of an evolution. But I came to the point of saying, yeah, we should better educate everybody. Again, what I feel the government's primary role is, we should provide information, provide the ability for informed choices, but then not be everybody's parent. I mean, everybody, it's funny, when you're a teenager, right? What do you want to do? Get away from your parents. Say, leave me alone. I want to do this myself. And now everybody in the state almost is so used to this big government thing. It's like, I want the government to be my parent. It's like, how did that happen? How did it go in reverse like that? I mean, all of us, when we're younger, we're screaming for the opportunity to live our own lives. And now a lot of people in this state have forfeited that. And I mean, it's partly the COVID thing with the fear, but it's also just the idea that, if the government can take care of it for me, then why should I bother with it? Let them do it. Then I have one less thing to worry about myself. Well, this is your life. You should be worried about all these things. It should matter to you, and it is worth your time and effort to deal with it yourself. You're the best decision maker for your life.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous habit to get into, to defer those things all the time, especially when it goes to government, because the decisions are going to get made for you and they're not going to be in your best interest. I think we've seen that time and time and time again throughout history. All right, let me give you one last pitch. Why should people vote for you?
Well, I think along the lines of everything we've said tonight. I mean, I think that nobody else in the government and no one else running cares about you. All the people of New Jersey. I mean, we are trying to put you first, like it's supposed to be. Far back as the federal constitution, New Jersey state constitution. I mean, it's to limit government's involvement in your life, and this is what has to we have to come back to. We have to stop all the out of control spending and red tape and bloating of government at everyone's expense, making it impossible to stay here without giving up half your earnings to all kinds of things that are just money wasters. And, again, enable people. We need to educate and enable and train people to take charge of their own lives, and everyone will be better off. Everyone. Yeah. It'll have a ripple effect throughout the whole state, the whole economy, the whole state, for quality of life, everything. And we're the only ones that are going to be in a position to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. For anyone who's still on the live cast, if you end up watching the recorded version of this, please remember to share this and get this out there so that folks can learn a little bit more about Gregg and his platform. Also, make sure to go over to his website, Mele for Governor, MELE for the word for FOR governor.com. Make sure to hit the donate button and throw a couple of shekels his way. We don't love fiat currency and modern monetary theory, but look, you need some bucks in order to run for office, so definitely hit the donate button. And if you are a New Jersey resident, go over and click the petition button, digitally sign this, make sure Gregg can get on to the ballot easily, and hopefully we can get enough signatures quickly so that we can hit the campaign, hit the campaign trail and get some, more awareness about Gregg's campaign and what he can do for New Jersey. So with that, Gregg, I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. I know your time is valuable.
I appreciate the chance to come on and talk with you, Matt. It's always a pleasure to see you, and the chance to let people know what we're about. I mean, this is priceless. Thank you.
Awesome. Look, everyone, have a very good evening. I appreciate you guys hanging in there as well. I will be back Monday, and have a very good weekend. Have a good one, Gregg.
All right. Thanks. You guys all have a good weekend. Take care.
Bye.